guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I guess this isn't technically a doll repaint, but I'm going to be customizing a BJD for the first time. Y'all may know I picked up a couple BJDs recently, and I just really like them. I like all dolls, honestly. Like anything that's articulated, I'm pretty into. I decided to customize my Resinsoul Wei first because the size is similar to Monster High dolls, so it's similar to what I'm used to. And also, it is the cheapest BJD that I own, so if I royally mess it up, it's not the biggest of deals. Well, it still is, because even the cheapest of BJDs is still expensive compared to fashion dolls, but I figured it wouldn't completely break my heart if I broke something on her, even though it would still kind of break my heart. Anyway, let's just get started. So homegirl is so tightly strung that she just cannot stand, so we're gonna be fixing that later. She came with cat ears and a tail, which they're very cute. I ended up opting out of the cat ears because having two sets of ears is a little strange for me, but they're like so well sculpted and I wish I could actually use them for her. I twisted her S-hook around and took her head off, and the eyes that she has in right now are craft eye eyes. I'm not going to end up using these, I just had them and I like them better than the eyes that she came with. These are the eyes that she came with, if y'all are curious. Since we basically don't have to prep this doll because she came blank, we're just gonna get right into the face up, hey! So I sprayed the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray and wearing a respirator mask, and then we get to painting. So since this is my first time painting a BJD, this is also my first time painting around, or sketching around eye holes for inset eyes. Which was a little bit weird at first. I just kind of had to figure out where I wanted to put things and where would make sense. But it wasn't that bad. Like I figured it out pretty quickly. To color in the waterline, I used pastels. I did this because I saw Color doing this. So if you guys don't know, Color like does like some of the best, or in my opinion, like some of the best BJD face ups. Like they're just really cool and stylized. But she was coloring in the waterline with pastels, so I was like, let me try that. And I did, and I like it. I think it looks good. The color just laid down a lot smoother than I imagine a pencil would. I also sketched in the lashes with my red pencil, which I don't normally do. I think I saw somebody doing this. Maybe it was Color. I watched like 1 or 2 BJD face-ups before painting this doll because I was a little bit nervous. I thought that it might be significantly different than painting a vinyl head, and it's not. If you guys have painted a really hard vinyl head, painting resin it feels basically the same. I don't know if I'm gonna incorporate these sketched out red lashes into all of my face ups, but it's always good to experiment. Y'all should experiment. If you see somebody else doing something and you like it, just experiment it with your own face up. I'm shading around her face with browns, pinks, purples, reds, and blues. I think that this doll's sculpt is incredibly cute. She just has really big, kind of sad eyes, and her mouth is agape. Something that I would kind of, I guess, critique about her mouth is that I wish that, like, her mouth is open enough that I wish they had sculpted on teeth. Like, maybe just like 2 little tiny baby teeth would have been so cute. Part of me is thinking about when I get more comfortable with painting BJDs and just with working on BJDs, because I'm still very new to it, to maybe sculpting on teeth or something at some point. I think that would be really cute, but that's like probably a while into the future. Since her mouth is, in my opinion, a little bit too open not to have teeth, I'm really trying to shade in the inside of her mouth so that it looks like it's too dark for you to see, I guess, the teeth that she should have. I tap red pastel with a Q-tip onto the middle of her upper and lower lips so that it gives her a bit of a bitten lip look. I always feel the need to explain this part because I feel like for people who are new to my channel or doing face ups, you may be like, what are you doing with that blue pencil? But I'm just adding branch-like vein pencil marks around the eyes and the forehead. I'm trying to make these lines very soft and not very obvious, so I'm trying to press very lightly with my pencil. A little tip if you guys don't know, but if you hold the pencil towards the back instead of towards the lead, it'll give you way lighter lines. For the highlights around the face, I do 3 different layers of them. So the first layer is pastels. I'm going around and I'm just adding quite a bit of white pan pastel all around the face. Once that is sprayed, I then go in with white watercolor pencil and I add some sharper highlight lines around the eyes and the lips. Once that's sprayed with MSC, I go in with white watercolor paint and I'm adding this on top of some of the white highlight lines that I did with the pencil, but not all of them. I'm going in way more sparingly with the paint than I did pencil. With my white paint, I'm adding some lines of wrinkles to her lips, mainly the lower lips. I added the beginning stages of her eyebrows with some brown pastel. I feel like I always try to make excuses for why I'm adding tons of glitter to my faces, but I'm just doing it because I do it with every face up and it's so pretty. So I'm just adding tons of the macro Perlix pigment on her, just like all over the middle of her face basically. I wanted her to have really long thick lashes to go with her big sad eyes. So I'm going over where I sketched in the lashes with my red watercolor pencil. I'm going over that with black watercolor pencil. I also added just a couple of lines of lashes to the upper lash line. I'm going to be going in with 3D lashes for this doll, so I'm mainly keeping it to the outer portion of the eye. With my Derwent metallic rose gold watercolor pencil, I'm adding that to the waterline. I'm painting her upper lash line black with acrylic paint because it would just look really weird if there's a gap in her 3D lashes if it wasn't painted black. I've mentioned this a couple times in my videos, but I'm obsessed with adding an extension onto the lashes with my rose gold watercolor pencil, so this face up is no different. We're just doing that on these lashes as well. To make the brows even more defined, I'm going over where I put down the brown watercolor pencil earlier. I'm going over that with brown watercolor paint. Taking rose gold watercolor paint, I'm adding some dots of highlights onto the waterline. I'm also going to be doing this with white watercolor paint later. It was kind of interesting how fast I did this face up because normally when I do vinyl face ups, I have to sketch in the iris of the eyes, and that is by far the most meticulous part of face ups for me. Since I didn't have to do that because she doesn't have irises, it just went by super fast. The last thing we're doing on this face is I'm adding some Vallejo gloss varnish to the lips and also the waterline because I've seen other people do that on BJDs and it looks really good, so we're going to do that as well. Something that I did with this doll that I do not recommend is that I put her lashes on right after I did her face up and I hadn't made a wig cap yet, and it made my life real annoying later. Don't be like me, y'all. Think before you do things. For the lashes, I was going to order BJD lashes, but then I said no because I have individual false lashes. They've been sitting in my lash drawer for like 2 years, so I decided to just use those. I just put them in, and I'm trying to do, like, for the lashes, I was trying to do like a flared out design where it's longer towards the outer portion of the eye, but I trimmed them down after I applied them. Listen, y'all can think whatever you want, but I really like how her face up came out. Little baby head, I love it so much. So I wanted to venture into unknown territory, which is basically what I did with this whole doll. I wanted to make her some inset eyes. And how I'm going to be doing this is I am mixing resin with white ink to get the white of the eye. I bought this mold off of Amazon. I learned how to make these from a ton of YouTube videos, watching a couple of those, and also Dolllynxs here on YouTube. I am one of her patrons, and she did like an eye making tutorial, so gotta give credit where credit is due. She really helped me out with this process. I'm slowly and carefully pouring the white resin into the eye mold. I rub a toothpick across the resin in case there's any bubbles in the resin. This will pop them. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but the resin that I'm using is UV resin, so we're putting it in a UV lamp to harden, and the ink that I used was alcohol ink. To get the realistic eye texture that these eyes are going to have, or that I want these eyes to have, I'm mixing my 2-part epoxy sculpt together, and I'm taking a teeny tiny bit and I'm filling in the indent of these eyes, maybe like halfway with the sculpt. I'm trying to make it lay as flat as I possibly can. I use a dotting tool to get the pupil shape. I press a pin into the epoxy sculpt towards the pupil to get that line texture that eyes have. I colored in the pupil with some black acrylic paint. Since this is the first pair of inset eyes I've ever made, I colored them in with acrylic paint, which I actually don't recommend. I'm going to show you guys a different method of coloring them in like a minute. I colored the eyes in here with light blue acrylics and light pink acrylics, and I think they look fine. I actually think that this first pair of eyes ended up looking like okay, but I think that there's just a better way to do this. After I was done coloring them in with the acrylics, I outlined the eyes with black paint. At this stage, I'm going in with metallic watercolors. Doing like a ring of them, a ring of gold around the pupils, and then dots of watercolors just in the irises. And I don't recommend doing this because they are watercolors. When you put in the resin, it's going to wet the watercolors. It doesn't end up looking terrible, but it's not as precise as you want it to be because it's moving around that watercolor paint. To finish off the eyes, I added a drop of resin to each eye, and then I put them in my UV lamp. This is how they turned out. I think they look okay. On the doll, I also think that they look okay, but the issue that I had was that the blue and the pink wasn't very blended, and it kind of just looked like blocks of color, which I wasn't crazy about. So I ended up making another pair of eyes, which is these ones. These are actually my favorite, but I ran into an issue because I came to realize that with Resinsoul eyes, their eye wells are very, very shallow, and these were way too domed. So they just looked very strange on the doll. They weren't laying flat enough. So I decided to make a bunch of other eyeballs. Like I was saying earlier, a better method to color in these eyes, in my opinion, is using soft pastels, which is what I'm doing here. It just looks a lot more blended than using acrylics. A technique that I came to learn from watching Tian Ba's eyes, which if you guys haven't seen their eyes, they're like the prettiest things ever, but I mixed some ink with resin and I put that on top of the pastels. This makes it so that the ink kind of sinks into the line texture that we laid down earlier with the epoxy sculpt. I also wanted some glitter in there, so I mixed some of this holographic pink glitter with resin, and I'm doing a layer of that on the eyes. After adding a drop of resin and finishing the eyes, this is how they turned out, and they're way flatter than the previous pair, the second pair that I made, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't really love any of these. I think I like the green ones the most, but I don't even really love those. By the way, my hands look crazy right here because all of the alcohol ink splattered all over my hands when I was trying to open it. It was the worst. I decided to make one last pair of eyes off camera, inspired by the second pair of eyes that I made, and I love these, a lot. On to her wig. So I've only made one other wig before, and it was horrendous. It was like when I first started making or repainting dolls, and it was real bad. So we're gonna make another one and hope that it's not as bad. I'm cutting this brown acrylic yarn pretty haphazardly, and I'm going to be tying it to whatever this thing is. I then brushed out the yarn with a cat brush, starting at the bottom and working my way up, and I'm not going to be straightening the yarn because I like the wavy kind of poofy texture it has. I cut the hair off and glue it to a sandwich bag using Elmer's glue to create wefts. Stepping away from the wefts to let them dry, I'm moving on to her wig cap, and this was just not the business, okay? I should have done this prior to applying the lashes, but I just didn't because I was too excited. So to make the wig cap, I put saran wrap over her head, but I couldn't put it completely over her head because she had the lashes, so I'd cut a hole into it. This is to protect the doll's face from the Elmer's glue. I then put stretchy white fabric over top of the saran wrap that I also couldn't completely apply over her face, so it's kind of lumpy. I then applied 5 layers of Elmer's glue and let it dry. After it was dry, I cut the cap in the shape that I wanted her hairline to be and painted it brown with acrylic paint. This is because her hair is dark, and I thought that the white of the wig cap would look a little bit too obvious if there's any gaps in her wefts when I'm applying them. For glue, I'm using Elmer's Glue All, and I'm applying the wefts in a tiered fashion all the way up her wig cap. When I get up to the part, I apply a weft and I flip it backwards on both sides of her head. I also apply one to the back, a tiny weft, and I flip that backwards. This is how her hair turned out. It's kind of gigantic. So I'm going to be heating up a chopstick and pressing that down onto her part so it lays down a little bit flatter. I ended up tying her hair back in a little braid with some wire, and I put her head back on her body with her wig on just to see what it would look like, and it's so cute. As I said earlier, her body was way too tightly strung, which is how Resinsoul dolls normally come, so I had to go in and restring her, hot glue suede her, and add wire to her joints. I did this off camera because it was just like a lot, like doing it for the first time. I think she's way better now, like she can actually hold a pose, she can stand. Something that sort of is unfortunate that happened is that her knee joints aren't flush anymore. It's not a big deal, and she definitely poses better with the hot glue sueding, even if her knees are a little bit funky. For her outfit, I wanted to make a romper inspired by oddprincessdolls. I will link them down below. They make some of the prettiest doll clothing I think I've ever seen. Since it's the prettiest clothing I think I've ever seen for dolls and I'm not the best seamstress, I don't know if I'm going to do it justice, but I'm certainly going to try. For the top of the romper, I sewed the lacy fabric to the front and back of the top and also hemmed the neckline and the armholes of the front and the back. I also hemmed each piece of the bottoms of the shorts part of the romper. I sewed the crotch part of the front and the back of the shorts, leaving an opening in the back so that I can put a clasp there. I gather stitched the top of the shorts and then sewed that to the front and the back of the top of the romper, and then sewed those together at the shoulders and the side seam. I'm gather stitching the bottom of each leg of the romper. I'm trying to create a bloomer effect. That's why I gather stitched the bottom of the shorts as well as the top. I sewed a bit of pink ribbon to the bottom of each leg. I sewed her leg holes together and flipped it, and we have the general shape of her romper done, but we gotta do the most important part. We gotta decorate it. I ended up decorating her romper with various laces and ribbons and pearls, and I think it turned out, I think this might be like one of the cutest things I've ever made. Like, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but good lord, this is so cute. I'm going to be making her some shoes, so she needs some socks. So I took some stretchy pink lace and I sewed that to her foot, good side to good side, cut out the shape, and then I flipped it. Now for shoes. So if you guys have seen my Lolita doll repaint, then you may have seen these shoes. They're just really simple shoes that I've made in the past. They're like slip-ons or whatever. I have made it a New Year's resolution to get better at making shoes because it is just definitely an area that I'm lacking in. So yeah, I just hemmed the opening of the shoe and then I sewed the back together. And I sewed that good side to good side to the sole of the shoe that is made out of foam, and then I flipped that. To create a strap, I sewed a strip of these pearls across her shoe. I hot glued a uppercase D shape to the bottom of her foot to create a heel. I don't think tons of people blush BJD bodies, but I decided to anyway. I think the reason why people don't blush them a lot is because they chip easily, but I blushed her body with the same tones that I used on her face. I decided at the last minute that she needed a hat, and not just any hat. She needed like one of those straw hats or whatever they're called. This is actually very inspired by the Doll Fairy. She made, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like a Disney doll repaint. It's her most recent doll repaint that she's put up, and her doll had like a really cute hat, and I was like, I want a really cute hat too. So I traced around some ribbon that I had to get the pattern for the hat. I then took that pattern and traced it onto cardstock paper so that it would have more of a like sturdy surface to hot glue this jute rope onto. I'm hot gluing the rope in a spiral design all around the brim of the hat. I hot glued some of that rope onto the edge of the brim of the hat as well, just so that it would look a little bit cleaner. For the top of the hat, I'm doing something very similar, well, basically the same thing that I did for the brim of the hat. I'm just gluing that jute rope in a spiral pattern. I'm connecting the brim of the hat and the top of the hat together with that strip of cardstock that I also filled in with jute rope that I'm bending around in a circle and hot gluing together. To decorate the hat, I'm wrapping some ribbon around it and also hot gluing a bow. To make it so that the hat can be tied to her head, I also hot glue 2 pieces of ribbon on each side of the hat. And with that, she's done. I'm really happy with how she turned out. Let me know what you guys think about her down below. I just think that this was a really fun and good experience for my first customization of a BJD. I tried a lot of new techniques for this doll, and I feel a lot less intimidated when it comes to working on BJDs, and I think that's just a really good thing. And don't worry, I'm still definitely gonna repaint fashion dolls. I love those as well. I just love all dolls. I should have a doll repaint going up relatively soon with 2 other YouTube doll artists, so be on the lookout for that. Like this video if you like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!
Dolllynxs.